Jenny-Jaymes and our sidekick Christian Cano, partner in crime, is coming up next.
Hey everyone, I'm Jen's sidekick. Welcome to Two Queers in a Truck. Hi y'all.
See you soon.
Good morning, everybody. It is Two Queers in the Truck time, and it is the second Wednesday of October, and we're into my favorite month, the spooky season. The whole Halloween thing's going on, and people are getting all excited, and you see Halloween candy for sale already, and I just love it. Everybody's getting their pumpkin spice lattes and the whole 9 yards, but it's Christian and I this week, just like it is every week for Two Queers in a Truck, and we had a interesting week. It is, and because we tape these a week in advance, so this is actually the Wednesday, October 4th when we're recording this, but it'll drop on the 11th if you see it on the first day we release it. But yeah, it's it's just one of these weeks where, we've had the budget crisis kind of semi-averted, even though I didn't even really make it one of the topics because of what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
But it's kind of related to what happened yesterday, and we'll get right into it, which is, how you doing, Boo?
Very good. How are you? Happy October. Hard to believe.
I know. We're already our second weekend,
That's right.
We already recorded the first week's or today's shows that are dropping, and they're two good shows. So if you only watch this show, you should check out Coffee and Pan Dulce. It's on the same platforms as Two Queers in a Truck, and vice versa. If you tune in because you saw our advertisements on Coffee and Pan Dulce, welcome. And for all of our longtime listeners and viewers, welcome back. But yeah, the biggest topic of the week is Kevin got fired.
Wow.
They canned his ass. The first time in American history that a Speaker of the House has ever been fired. And there's no other way of saying it. It's not like he quit. He just hurt some fifis of the extreme MAGA part of the party. I guess they call themselves the Freedom Caucus, which is kind of ironic. They're firing their own speaker that they just appointed this year. They made it a full year, but you knew something bad was going to happen, because if we harken back to January when they had the also historic, I don't know, they nominate, he went up for nomination 15, 20 times. It went over several days, almost a week of trying for them to figure out how to elect the guy that they only mentioned for months that he was going to be the speaker once they won the election 3 months before, and took the House back over. And then it was like Keystone Cops or something. They were just like, so they had 3 months to plan it, and they act like they had the election in November, and the next week they needed to figure out a speaker. But they had most of November, all of December, and about a week in January. So they had about, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's say they only had about 7 weeks after all the votes were in, to figure out and put together, super glue a deal with their crayons and butcher paper and bar napkins on how to rig it to where they can get their way and they can run the Speaker of the House's job by committee. Because that's what they want. They want to have a say. McCarthy dies. and like a little marionette, McCarthy comes out with this little gavel and goes, "Hey, what do you guys want to do?" Now, that's not really how the speaker's job is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, the mob did not like the fact that we have an operating budget for our federal government, that employs millions of people and provides a lot of infrastructure and services. But, that's a pesky little detail that Republicans don't like to be bothered by. And he did the right thing. He made sure that at least we had a deal in place to pay, including our military service people. Obviously, the Congress has themselves exempt from this rule, so they get paid whether the government employees get paid or not. Like air traffic controllers, people defending our borders. They go on and on about the southern border, but then they don't want to make a deal to make sure that the Border Patrol actually gets paid. Homeland Security, the whole 9 yards, all those little fucking deals. Not a big deal as long as they get their paychecks and they get their way. And so they got mad that Kevin McCarthy did his job, which is part of the democracy, is, compromising on both sides and saying, this is what we need to do to get forward in the game. Should have a fucking budget ready. It's not like we changed the date on the budget. Like, it's been October 1st for at least in my lifetime, and I just turned 54. So it's at least a half century old, and I think it's older than that. I don't know when they started setting the federal budget on October 1st, but they did. And so these chuckle fucks of the Republican Party, when they're in control, in the last 20 or 30 years, when they've controlled part of the Congress, including the House, we've had these budget crises. We had them under the last speaker and the speaker before that. It's like they don't own a calendar. Maybe we should tell them it's September 1st. You got to have it passed by Labor Day. Put the Jedi mind trick on them. Go. These aren't the droids you're looking for, and you've got to pass a budget by Labor Day. And so they'll work over the summer. It's like we get to September and they go, oh, yeah, we got to figure this budget thing out. This big ass, huge ass government with $1 trillion military and all these complications and foreign aid and fucking domestic programs and this. And the thing is, the budget's practically written for them because the federal government, for a lot of people that don't know this, they do what they call baseline budget. That means the budget cannot be less than what it was the year before. They have a formula. So when they say budget cuts, they're actually talking about cutting the increase that they adjust for inflation and increases of costs. The budget never gets cut under baseline budgeting. That means a federal program, it's really hard to kill a federal program. It's designed to make the budget less political and more functional, like a business. And it's one of the most nonpartisan things the Congress should be able to do. We should be able to agree on the programs they've already fucking approved years before. In some cases, like Social Security and Medicare, they don't even need to approve the budget because they're autonomous programs separate from Congress. Or at least they should. I like to dip in those funds too. But so essentially, they don't have to rewrite. They don't have to get out there. And when they say they're cutting it, it'll be like 3.9 or 4%. So in the famous Bush #1 in 1991's budget fiasco meltdown, for example, that kind of what led to the economy stupid and they had all these days without a budget and we had a shutdown back then. It kind of started this Republican idiocy. It was kind of the first time in a long time that a political party that was in control of the House couldn't pass a budget, and they couldn't get out their little fingers and toes and count high enough, I guess, or whatever. And they debated between a 5.8% increase or a 5.9% increase. They fought and shut down the government for a tenth of a point, a percentage point. And this is what they're fighting over now, is like little things like aid for Ukraine, which is a lot of money to you and I, but in the grand scheme of things, is not even a tenth of a percent of the budget. Like literally, there's jet fighter programs for the 6th generation jet fighters they're coming out with that are super stealth and do all these fancy tricks, and they're even going to have lasers on them, like Jewish space slavers, you know, like MTG. Mm-hmm. And it's just stupid. They're fighting over nothing. And we'll get more back to that later. So there's some morons on Twitter, big shock, that are trying to make the argument that if you're pro-immigration, if you are for immigrants coming to this country safely, and for the ones that need asylum, granting asylum or starting the process of asylum, like many of the refugees coming from Central America are leaving because they're being targeted. Many of them are seeking asylum for safety, like literally. And they're saying because brown people from Central America are coming to the United States, that it's equivalent. If brown people come here in droves, it is the genocide of white people. And they're equating it to when Western European empires invaded the Americas, to what the Europeans did to the indigenous populations, the indigenous first world nations that were already here. The problem is that the logic's so fucking stupid. And I ran into one of these idiots posting on one of my friends that I follow saying this bullshit. And I said, first of all, I called him a fucking idiot because now you can do it on Twitter and not get flagged. So I repeated how dumb he was. But I also said the power dynamic is a little ass backwards, my dude. Mm-hmm. That the moment El Salvador invades the United States and takes over, let's say Texas, let's just for shits and giggles, then yes. And they put some kind of COVID blankets on people and, you know, whatever. And they kill a whole bunch of white people in Texas. And Texas becomes part of El Salvador. Because El Salvador, in secret plans, built a huge-ass Navy, a huge-ass Air Force, and dropped a whole bunch of super-trained El Salvadorian special super troopers with lasers and Death Stars and all that, and overwhelmed our military presence in Texas. And now it's a satellite nation of El Salvador. El Salvador North. You would be completely correct. Yeah. The people from El Salvador that are crawling across the badlands of Mexico just to get here, these are poor people. They're not invading anything.
Yeah.
They don't have food. They don't have potable water. They have to beg to come and try to navigate around Governor Abbott's psychopathic death traps that they've set up now. Mm-hmm. If these people were going to come into the United States and do a genocide against white people, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't walk here.
Okay.
I mean, like it's a very bizarre path to go down, but they've got these websites, these Twitter pages set up, and they're claiming immigration is white genocide.
You know what, Jenny? I've been thinking about that as well, because obviously this is a big issue, but it's becoming a big issue also for big cities and big blue cities as well. You know, people are concerned about immigration and migration and so forth. The obvious response to me is kind of what you said. You can't compare it. It's a completely different. But then I go back to what you tell me all the time. you can't be reasonable with unreasonable people. You know what I mean?
Right.
You can't throw facts at them. You can't. It's almost like you have to fight things like that, or you have to rebuke things like that by saying, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You almost have to say, you know what? If the option is them overthrowing you and me getting rid of you, I'm perfectly fine with that.
So then that's what I said.
Okay.
And that we're up against our first break, and I want to wrap that thought up because you are exactly right. And we'll be back with some more Two Queers in a Truck. Hey guys, I've got a special product out, and we've got a store under the name blueappliedtech.com, and you can go on our Etsy store, you can go on our social media, and you can check out our merchandise. We have some amazing snowflake Trump mugshot ornaments. We have mugs, we have pillow covers, we have a lot of cute stuff for the holiday season that you can buy. And it's great fun, and it goes to a good cause. It goes to my company, and it's helping us out getting started. And also, who doesn't want a historic snowflake Trump ornament?
Exactly.
This year.
That's funny. What's the name of it again?
And the name of the company is Blue, like the color blue, applied APPLIED Tech. Like technology.
Blue Applied Tech. Ah, cool.
And so you can look us up. We have a website, but our stores on Etsy, and a lot of people use Etsy for different types of great gifts. They are assembled in the United States, so it creates American jobs. And most of all, it's a lot of fun, and they're not expensive.
Cool.
So,
Blue Applied Tech. Got it.
Correct. Come seek us out and buy some gifts.
Cool.
Hey, everybody, you can catch us on your favorite audio podcast platform, Spotify, and all Apple Store, the Google machine, and whoever else does podcasts. We're on there. We broke in, and we're staying. So enjoy the Two Queers in the Truck on your favorite audio podcast platform. Thanks for listening or watching. Bye-bye. Happy time.
We are back. 100%. The guys thought he kind of like the Stevens of the world. They think they come up with these crazy arguments to justify white. Essentially, this is an extension of white replacement theory. People laughed at them so hard for using that term that they just changed the terms. Same argument.
Yeah.
Just like the argument against trans people right now is the same argument they used men in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. But the whole of the deal is I was like, no, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I said, honestly, it's time for the white conservatives to go. Because, why don't you just leave? Why don't you move to their country if it's
exactly.
I'm going, no, they're not going to change our culture. We have 330 million Americans. Mm-hmm. We're 250 years old, and we're the biggest, and we're the most powerful empire on the planet.
Yep.
I said, but I am ready for y'all to go. I hope they replace you.
Yeah, exactly.
Just often he starts sending memes, and I finally just blocked it.
Yeah.
But the whole point was, I don't really give a shit.
Yeah.
I don't feel threatened by immigrants. I'm the granddaughter of immigrants. Mm-hmm. Immigrants don't scare me, no matter where they come from. But you are showing your xenophobia and your racism and your bigotry. But if you're worried about poor brown people that aren't riding some luxury train, they're not in a private. These people are fucking walking.
Yeah.
Over 1,000 miles or however far El Salvador is from our southern border. They're not on the Yellow Brick Road.
Yeah.
They're not clicking their heels 3 times and going back to Kansas. I mean, these motherfuckers, you got to be pretty desperate.
Yeah.
It's not like they're walking through the resort parts of Mexico either. They're going and stopping off at Cancun and saying hi to Tech. They're rolling through the cities and the countrysides and the fucking regular deal on foot, usually with kids in tow. It's and they're not staying in luxury resorts. They're probably sleeping in fucking shelters and probably bathrooms and everything else.
Yeah.
And so it's a really wild deal. But here in 2024 we have another presidential election year and a big election year in general. And if the Dems don't use this kookiness of this kind of shit about, some kind of white genocide or trying to equate it to genocide, and or they don't use this McCarthy situation of showing how they can't even keep a speaker in place. If the Dems don't use this, we deserve to lose.
Yeah.
Because if you can't use a historic events like this, and you can't point to saying, this is why we should not trust them.
Exactly. Yeah.
With the keys to the House of Representatives. Like, they're not management material.
They're chaotic. They're not people that you would hire. So why would you hire them to do the most important job in the world, and that's to run the country?
upper management.
Exactly. It's like
of the fucking government.
Exactly.
They set the fuck up. They're
exactly.
They're basically the CFO, the chief financial officer of our federal government.
Yep.
They set the budget every year. That's one of the most important things the House does. Then they send it over to the Senate. The Senate, says makes any adjustments they feel need to be needed. If they make adjustments, it kicks it back to the House. The House looks at it, sends it over. And just like on the morning TV, Saturday morning cartoons, when they did the function junction and all that.
What's your function? Yeah.
They played how the bills and the laws work. And also the budget process. And I still remember that from 40, 50 years ago.
Is that bizarre?
It is so bizarre.
Oh, that was so wonderful.
One of the few things that I learned from TV that made me as smart as I am today.
Yeah.
And if we can't point that they can't pass a budget on time, they got their first year and they talked about budget and inflation and how they were going to change all this shit. They had 9 months to be ready for October 1st.
Yeah.
Completely shit the bed. Wasn't ready. Acted like it was a surprise. Oh my gosh. Whole month of September, all we heard was, we're not going to be ready in time. You've had 9 months. You have committees. You had control of the committees. And if you chuckle fox can't be ready in 9 months, we have no help for you.
Yeah.
The best we can do is vote them out of power.
Yeah.
And it's not a partisan issue. This is the basic function of their job.
Yes.
It's like going to your job, and let's say you're a convenience store clerk. And you have no ability to work the cash register.
Exactly. And you got a whole line, and you're like, I'm going to take a week off and learn how to work the cash register, and I'll be back next week.
I think this button works. Hey, can you just come over around the counter and you can just check yourself out?
Yes. Yeah.
That's really what we're talking about here, is a whole majority of the House cannot function as a group and get so mad at the person they appointed 9 months ago to do the job, guide the budget process, which is the main part of their job. Well, it is the fundamental, one of the most fundamental functions of the Congress is to pass the budget.
Yeah.
It starts in the House every time. Every time. October 1st, this has to be done by October 1st.
Yeah.
Not a suggestion, it's a hard stop deadline for a lot of reasons. And yet these morons can't do their jobs.
Yeah.
But they keep wanting their job. They keep applying for the same job every 2 fucking years. And there's just enough idiots to vote them in. And every time they've had control of the House, we've had budget crises. We don't have less money. Our economy hasn't shrunk; it's grown
Mm-hmm.
in the last 30 years. But every time they've controlled the House, they've made this a fucking three-ring circus.
Yep.
The Democrats, though, shame on them. I'd be running commercials about this, and I'd be putting little claims in it and going, "These dumb fucks can't figure it out." I'd use the word "fuck" personally.
Yeah.
And I would say these dumb fucks don't know what October 1st is.
Yeah.
And I would point this out ad nauseum. I'd be running it on the Sunday foosball games.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be running it with Skyriders in case people still look up at the sky. I'd be on the sides of buses. I'd be like, Republicans can't figure out when to do the budget.
Yeah.
I'd be making fun of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be putting big old pictures of giant red noses and clowns on all the Republicans' faces.
And then have speakers of the House coming out of a different speaker this week, a different speaker this week, a different speaker.
Yeah, coming out of a clown car. You know, like they fill a clown car full of 20 different clowns.
Yeah.
Because they are fucking clowns.
Yeah.
The biggest, they're not even a political party anymore. They're half terrorists, half clowns. And it would be entertaining if it wasn't really happening and it wasn't threatening people's livelihoods. I want to talk a little bit about Afghanistan because they're trying to make it a political issue for Biden.
Yeah.
And I'm going, do you guys just, I guess Republicans and conservatives never went to history classes. And I say this because we have evidence of why Afghanistan collapsed. So after World War II and the Korean War, we occupied the places where we won or came by, like in Korea. We're still in Korea. Korean War is not even over. It's just a ceasefire. It's just a truce. Hey, you don't come below this parallel. We don't go above that parallel. There's a big giant line that divides the two Koreas. They divided the Korean Peninsula almost half. And they've had the same dictator family running North Korea for, I think he's the son or grandson of the original one. But it's been this way since 1955, since President Eisenhower was the one who cut the deal. We have troops, we have nukes, we have deal. Same way with Japan and Germany. We still have our military there. That war ended in 1945, 10 years before the Korea ceasefire. And my point is that we were in Afghanistan less than 20 years. So less than a generation ago, we killed hundreds of thousands of Afghani citizens, just like we killed hundreds of thousands of Germans and Japanese and Koreans. You can't pull out in the same generation that you slaughtered their people with our jet fighters and bombs and in Japan's case, 2 atomic bombs, and think that the provincial government that we set up is going to be fine and the people are going to be fine with it. We have to admit that if we wanted Afghanistan to be a thriving democracy with a little puppet government we set up, to enforce democracy onto the people of Afghanistan has to be multiple generational change. So the people currently living all have people that were killed by our American soldiers and weapons. So this is their 1945 or 1955, meaning we still needed to have our American military there policing their government and enforcing our will on them until probably like 2085, 2090, year 2100. After all the generations here in the United States, and they are long gone, or super, super, super old. We're still in Germany. We're still in Japan. We're still in Korea. Even today. Even though Germany and Japan are thriving democracies and thriving economic superpowers, and so is South Korea, we still have our military there to protect them against dubious players in that region that would just as soon we not be there so that they can fuck with these governments and topple them or make them a hot mess or whatever and start World War III. We're in Germany because of Russia. We'd have taken over the Soviet Union / Russia right after World War II, just kept on going like General Patton. We may not have been permanently there. Maybe we'd always have bases in Russia. Who knows? Just like if we had stayed and occupied communist China after we liberated them from Japan, and we just, by the way, we're going to turn China into democracy, and y'all don't really have a choice because we saved you out from the Japanese Empire. And we're going to keep military bases inside China permanently. And we just occupied most of the world. We just said, hey, we're kind of like the old British government. We're gonna occupy everything that can't behave, and we're going to basically rule the world. So when you blow up a country like Iraq or Afghanistan, if you do not stay and occupy it and modernize them and conform them to our way of thinking by force, either enemies outside of those countries in that region or enemies within will turn it back to where it was. And Iraq and Afghanistan are perfect examples. And another recent example, Vietnam. Vietnam collapsed like a cheap tent because we pulled out. We did the opposite of what we did in Korea and World War II. And if people don't get that, it's because the people are not going to be they're not going to really glom onto the idea of an American puppet government running their country. And they're going, I know everybody in my family knows somebody or had somebody get murdered by Americans after a war, after a massive wars. We killed 1.3 million people in Iraq and Afghanistan. Pretty sure most people lost somebody because of us. And we're up against our second break, and we'll be right back with some more Two Queers in a Truck.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching us on Two Queers in a Truck. Don't forget, you can watch us anytime at your leisure on our video podcast platforms like Facebook and YouTube, but you can also listen to us, either this show or any of our past shows, on our audio podcast platforms like Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and all of the other ones. So once again, thank you for watching Two Queers in a Truck. I hope you enjoy our show.
But radicalization happens after wars, and the trauma that happens after a war. That's why Germany went so radical. After World War I, the French occupational army that was in Germany was there to antagonize the Germans. And the cruel economic policies and penalties they did against Germany radicalized Germany and led to its collapse. And crazy-ass Nazis with all their crazy-ass, scary-ass ideas like the Republicans do have now. A lot of dumb, poor people. So about the same percentage of MAGAs that we have now. So I think this Hitler guy's got a good idea. That we need breathing room, and convince rational people to at least not fight it. And they went along to get along, and he told them the right things, just like Trump and all the other Republicans are saying that queer people and this and poor brown people coming over the border is what's going to lead to white genocide and all this, unless you vote me in, I stop this. We're at the same crossroads that many countries, right before they went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, started setting up death camps and all kinds of horrible things. So 2024 decides whether we reward fascism and craziness and install fascist presidents, and it doesn't matter who the Republican candidate is, the nominee. The party's batshit crazy. They've got a 900-page manifesto on how they're going to purge people out of the American government, civil servants. They've got 50 to 100,000 people in the government targeted for being fired. They're going to consolidate power and install stooges into our government, just like the Nazis did. Ever since they lost in 2020, they've put think tanks together, and this manifesto is a complete and total Nazi takeover if they win the presidency. So it doesn't matter. Like when people say, well, Nikki Haley, Nimrata, whatever the fuck her name is, wins, they go, well, she's kind of a moderate. I'm like, doesn't matter. George W. Bush was a moderate. George W. Bush was also a puppet and a stooge. Cheney was really our president, and when he got elected vice president, well, we saw what happened. We got involved in two major land wars and blew up the planet and tested all kinds of new secret weapons, and that's what 9/11 was about, was paying military contractors and doing all kinds of crazy Jewish space laser stuff on the Afghani and Iraqi troops. Let's just be real. Did we find big caches of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? Nope. Did we found all these super top secret terrorist training bases in Afghanistan? Nope. And that's the problem. And so when we install radical political parties, like the Republicans, you either see one or two things. If they just take over the House, you just see a clusterfuck, go fuck, hot mess like we've seen this year. They haven't done shit. The House has been on lockdown because you got McCarthy that's not really the Speaker of the House. He's just a puppet for about 20 mouth breathers that call themselves the Freedom Caucus, and it's really just, they're holding the whole House hostage. Every member of the House, Democrat or Republican, ought to have almost it's almost like a hostage situation. Biden needs to negotiate with the House Republicans, the 20 people, say, hey, how do we cut a deal to get you guys to release the House so it can function again? Because it brings me to topic number 5, which is the 2 years that we controlled the House, we passed the PACT Act, the CHIPS Act, the American Rescue Plan, the infrastructure package, the Inflation Reduction Act, and many more things. The Democrats, under the leadership of Pelosi, plus the Democratic Senate, and a Democrat president named Joe Biden, helped this country as much as FDR did with the New Deal and the Rural Electrification Act and all the other amazing things that FDR did to save America and get it ready for a crazy World War II. Joe Biden literally did that same job in a shorter period of time than FDR did. Literally, Joe Biden is FDR of this century. I don't care whether you like him or not, whether he was your first choice or your third or your 15th choice. He's done the fucking job. And under the leadership, really, of Pelosi, how we miss Pelosi now, an actual fucking leader. You can make fun of Pelosi all you want. She got it done. In 2 years, she got that with the same amount of majority as the Republicans have right now. She got shit done. Every week they passed something. They passed over 50 plus bills during her tenure. It was every other week they were passing something that helped Americans, helped our project along. We got ourselves out of a pandemic. We got ourselves out of a looming Great Depression type situation that could have just shattered our economy. Instead, our economy grew. We collected more taxes, and we're paying down the long-term debt. And the second year of this, in 2022, we actually lowered our long-term debt by $1.3 trillion because we were so effective by running this country. These fuckers can't even keep a Speaker of the House in their seat. It took them a historic amount of tries to get him into the job. And then they got him out of the job a few months later because they got their feet hurt. Because the Republican Snowflake Party, if they don't get their fucking way, all they want to do is cause chaos into what we saw is a perfectly running country for 2 years. The Democrats did the job they're supposed to do that they promised to do. There's no way of arguing. There's no debate. Democrats got it done. They rolled up their fucking sleeves and worked their asses off, and in a historic manner. Joe Biden deserves a second term. I don't care how old he is. We see how he governs in his first 2 years. He did more than the last 3 presidents combined. And he spent $50 billion saving the Ukraine and saving our allies in NATO and the EU and all that. And even Lindsey Graham said it's the best foreign military spending we've ever done, including making fun of George W. Bush and saying what we did in 9/11 was a disaster. We haven't lost one single troop. We've held off the second most powerful military in the world by our investment in Ukraine. I call that a fucking success. We lost not one single service person. And we fought off Russia to a stalemate. That's fucking amazing. Joe Biden's a fucking leader. And Democrats need to be fucking slapping them on the back saying, well, Republicans are complimenting that. Lindsey Graham is for spending the money. Lindsey Graham, of all people, that doesn't have a lick of sense on a lot of things, even he's walking hand in hand with several other Democrat senators saying, this is worth it. We've toured Ukraine. We've seen the results. Yeah, there's probably some money being misappropriated, but that happens here too. You can't tell me that multi-trillion-dollar budget that we passed, that some money gets misspent. Okay. But they're spending most 99.9% of it on war. Because they can't be $50 billion. Well, it cost us $8 trillion to fight the Iraq and Afghanistan war. We spent less than 0.1% on the Ukraine pushing back Russia. And the Afghani military and the Taliban and the Iraqi military ain't a fraction as strong as Russia. And we spent $8 trillion, which 50 billion will fit in there like a couple thousand times, whatever the math is. Yeah, we've done a good job, and we've done a good job. Biden's done a phenomenal job. Best president we've had since FDR. And we're looking to gift horse in the mouth, worrying about other stupid stuff. And so I did want to acknowledge the passing of Senator Feinstein. She passed away this week. That we're taping this at 90 years old. She was for women's rights and women in office. She she was one of the standard bearers. She was one of the first to break that glass ceiling and change how, I mean, for a long time, the Senate was a good old boys club. And Senator Feinstein changed that, redefined women in that office that also helped LGBT people. She was a staunch LGBT ally, fought for LGBT rights, not just in California, but across the nation. And she will be missed. Her replacement, I'm very excited about. LaFonza Butler. She was the former president of the Emily's List. She's a member of the LGBT community and a woman of color, a woman of integrity. She'd be a great replacement. She's not announced that she'll run again in 2024 when Dianne Feinstein's term is up. She said, right now, I want to concentrate on continuing Senator Feinstein's legacy and being a good substitute for that, and honor her first and foremost before thinking about her own personal career, which I thought was very well spoken. And I wish the best of luck to now Senator Butler of the great state of California. And I hope she runs. I know some other Democrats want that spot and have been running this year. Prepping for the fight. I know that what's her face that does the whiteboards, Katie Porter, she'd already put her name in that.
Adam Schiff or whatever his name is, the one that they thought he may have appointed, Barbara, what's her name, in California, the African American lady. Yeah, so there's a couple of congressional members that have showed interest in running for that. So it's going to be that's good that they have such quality people who can step up to the plate. But I agree with you, Jenny. That was a really good choice for the governor to make of California, someone of that caliber. So he honored his pledge to appoint an African American lady, female, and so I did think that was a good decision. But that kind of highlighted what you were talking about on your first topic, was that the Democrats were making history in that aspect. There's a lot of things that were happening on the Democratic side that were making history, and on the Republican side, they were creating chaos. So it's a very big difference.
And all during the Trump years too. That's all Trump does chaos, and had cabinet members quitting all the time, and cabinet members getting fired. And we've got to remember this. We've got to remind the American people: do you want chaos? Do you want an incompetent government? Because somehow people think, or they make the case for, well, if the government's in chaos, then they don't pass too many bills and they don't raise taxes.
That's chaotic people, though.
And I prefer to call them really stupid people.
Exactly.
Because I'm like, no, they always say, well, the government should be run like a business. Okay. Well, I'm pretty sure all successful Fortune 500 companies try to keep their management as less chaotic as possible. You don't grow a really big business or keep a business in growth patterns like a Walmart or an Amazon or whatever and constantly have chaos. And in fact, usually your upper management gets fired because of that. So Republican Congress people, especially in the House, should be fired for this. This is their fault. This is a crisis that did not happen because Russia invaded Ukraine or anything else. This is 110% the Republican Party's fault.
Yeah.
They can't lead. And they have shown that they are incompetent this whole century. 23 years in, and they have caused financial crises, overspending. Trump spent like a drunken sailor on shore leave for 4 years. He increased our national long-term debt 25% in one political term. and botched the COVID response. They got a lot more people killed than should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, he should never be anywhere near
Mm-hmm.
a deal. And look what he did at the last days of his deal. And got a bunch of mouth breathers all lathered up to go attack Congress to stop the peaceful transfer of power. Never happened in American history.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't even happen under Lincoln in 1864, in 1865, when we were fighting other Americans. That says all you need to know. With that, we are at the end of our show. In fact, we probably ran a little bit over. And we'll be back next week with some more Two Queers in a Truck as we dance their way out. Y'all have a great week.
Bye, Boo.
Bye, Boo. Hey, y'all. Thanks for watching Two Queers in a Truck. And we'll be back next week with some more editions. Have a safe week. Bye, Boo.
Bye, Boo.
Hey, thanks for watching Two Queers in a Truck. And Christian and I just blathering on about craziness in the world today. Y'all be safe out there. There is a lot of Republicans on the road.
That's right.
Have a good week out there.
Bye.